Yeah. Now, I actually have noticed over the last few years there's been a bit of a resurgence in third-party candidates. I mean, the Libertarian Party's been around for a very long time, yes. But within the last, I'd say, 6 years or so, been a bit of a resurgence in that.
Well, go ahead.
I was just wondering what you feel kind of inspired that, or what's your kind of view on that situation, that resurgence?
Well, you know, to some degree, I suppose it has something to do with Ron Paul. Ron Paul preaches a brand of libertarianism and has achieved a following in the Republican Party, but clearly the Republican Party has done whatever is necessary to stop him from gaining traction. And there's a lot of frustrated people out there who say, you know, he's basically right. Now, I'm not a devout fan of Dr. Paul. I have my differences with him, but you know, I think he's put libertarianism in people's minds. But you know, we were particularly lucky this year that the former governor of New Mexico, Gary Johnson, who toyed with the idea, started out as running as a Republican and realized it was hopeless, joined our party, and when he came to our convention, he said, "I'm not in it for 2012 only. I promise you that if you want me back in 2016, I'll keep up the battle. We'll have 4 years of building and putting it together." And Governor Johnson is a wonderful candidate, and he would make a wonderful president. And so you know, we've certainly increased our stature because we're increasing the candidate level that we have. And you know, I've been practicing law in the state of Utah since 1973. I'm more experienced in trial law and appellate law and constitutional law than either of my opponents by far. And so I know that I'm the most qualified man for Attorney General. You know, and of course, obviously, if I'm more qualified, that doesn't mean you want me in. If you don't like my ideas, you would still vote for one of my opponents. But you know, we feel we've got some qualified candidates, including myself, and we feel we've got ideas that need to be expressed, and we're doing our best.
Okay. Now, the current Attorney General, Mark Shurtleff, has been in office for a while. What's kind of your take on him? Has he done things that you agree with, the things that you don't agree with? Or you kind of, what's your take on his performance as Attorney General?
Well, you know, Mark, let's say, you know, what's the phrase, damn with faint praise. He could have been worse. And he hasn't been worse. He's just been bad. You know, I remember I ran against him a few years ago, and we had a debate, and it was at a radio station, and they had a live audience, and somebody asked me, somebody asked us what we thought about legalizing marijuana. You know, here comes the softball. And I told them what I've already said, and he was all upset. Shook his finger at me, said, "How can you possibly consider voting for a man who's such a lunatic fringe," and so on. And then when the debate was over, he came over, put his arm around me, and said, "Come on, let's go have a bite to eat." Nice guy. But you know, he and over the last while, he seems to be not as sure as he was about the drug war. He said some things in the recent past that maybe, you know, maybe he would consider moderating. Of course, he's leaving the office, and he can say anything he wants now, I guess. But you know, he's a drug warrior, and he refers to himself regularly as the top cop. And he sees himself as, you know, right there in the ranks with the police, and you know, fighting crime. And I certainly see myself as a prosecutor should I be elected, but I'm going to be a different kind of guy. You know, if somebody hurts somebody else, they'll get prosecuted. If somebody smokes marijuana, we'll find some way to be reasonable. And of course, part of the job of Attorney General is to get up at the legislature. He's up there all the time. I'm a lobbyist, so I see him up there all the time. You know, asking the legislature to do this and not do that. I'd be asking them to cut the laws, you know, back on certain things, and he's asking them to make them tougher. So we've had our strong disagreements, but once in a while, you know, I see his human side, and I say he's not such a bad person, but I don't like his politics, and I don't like what they're doing up there. And if I wasn't unhappy, I wouldn't be sitting here doing this.
Yeah. So you feel the Attorney General's role is more on the prosecutorial side, more in the courtroom, than leaning more towards doing legislative action or more direct in line with law enforcement agencies? I mean, where do you feel the Attorney General's role lies? Well,
the Attorney General is, you know, he's the legal guy for the state. That makes him a lobbyist, certainly, for the law enforcement community. It makes him, and so he spends some time up at the legislature. He doesn't vote on, you know, he doesn't pass laws. He doesn't have a vote in that. But certainly people listen to him. And on the other hand, he also, you know, he is the chief prosecutor for the state of Utah, and the law allows very clearly for what we refer to as prosecutorial discretion, which simply means if I'm the chief prosecutor, I can prosecute who I feel I need to prosecute. I can also refuse to prosecute those that I feel are not necessary to prosecute. I can also make deals. I can also say, I could charge this guy with a felony, but I don't see it as a felony. I'm going to charge him with a misdemeanor. I have a lot of, if I were there, I would have a lot of discretion in what I did. And George Bush Sr., when he ran for president, talked about a kinder, gentler government. I would like to see the government be kinder and gentler in the legal process. Let me tell you one little story. About 3-4 years ago, I had a gentleman walk into my office cold one day. He'd been referred by somebody, and he just got out of prison. He'd been in prison for 4.5 years for a crime that he didn't commit. And they kind of finally figured it out, and they let him go. And he said, "What do I do now?" And they said, "Well, you better go see Andy, because maybe he can help you get some money for it." And we were right in the middle at the time. The legislature was right in the middle of considering a law that compensated people for wrongly imprisoned. And
sorry.
And so you know, we worked on the law, and then we filed our lawsuit. And the state fought me tooth and nail. It took me 2 years of litigation. We had to appeal to the Court of Appeals, and we won. And he got his money. And the day that I got the phone call that said we won, the check is being written, I literally cried. And I said to my secretary, just take note of this day. There are many days I would like to quit and never come back to the practice of law. On a day like today, I remember why it's worth it. And but the Attorney General's office fought us tooth and nail. They shouldn't have done that. They should have taken a look at the case, and they should have said, "You're right. Where do you want the check sent?" Should never have happened. And I'm still angry about it. And so if I were Attorney General, things like that, things that seemed fairly obvious, that this man's been mistreated by the justice system, we'd fix it, and we'd fix it without a fuss. And I just don't understand why the administration, the current administration, would fight so hard against what seems so obvious.